Dan, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can the remote folks hear? Yes, okay, excellent. So this was a request on behalf of our room techs to the presenters. If you are showing slides, the easiest way is for you to share screen yourself. Even if you're in person, that would mean logging on to the Zoom meeting with your own computer and using your computer to share your slides. If that's not possible, the next best solution, Zoom Text, if you're able to access the Dropbox and work the slides yourself rather than having the room tech do it, that's second best. If neither of those is possible, and sometimes neither of those will be possible, the room techs will still be able to work the slides. But this allows the room techs to attend to the camera and other things that may be going on while you're showing slides. The second announcement is on behalf of Aharon, who will be leading a Shabbat service at 7:30 tonight for those of us who are in person. And would you like to say exactly where it'll be?
Shabbat service, traditional Jewish ending of the week ceremony. It will be like 20, 30 minutes with some songs. Like we do Danish songs in the morning, we can do Jewish songs in the evening. We'll meet outside here, if it's possible to go outside through this door. We'll meet here at 7:30, and by then we'll figure out a way to go outside and get some fresh air, and we'll lead you from here. So 7:30 in this room.
Thank you so much for your initiative with that, Aharon.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Good, wow, it works. Welcome. I think we've stopped moving the furniture around now, so we can get started for the afternoon. This is quite a big ship to handle in relatively stormy seas technologically. So I think it's a good training in patience. We're going to try and do our absolute best. I would remind you that we are not alone and that there are people with us who we can't see from different countries. And so there are two of us who are dealing with the Zoom people who are part of this meeting, but they're not here. So there will be occasionally inputs and outputs from that. I would also ask everybody please to switch off their mobile phones. I think we have enough technology around us right now to keep us happy for the next hour and a half. I would like to say a little bit about timing. In permaculture design, we have this thing called fair share. And in this conference, time is our currency. And so it's very important that we share the time equally between us, which means that I am the kind of time policeman, the traffic cop. And if you go too fast, and in this case, it'll be too far, too long, I will flag you down and I won't fine you, but I might stop you talking. And we're going to try and keep that so that it's fairly shared between everybody. I want you to bear in mind, we are a multinational and multi-language community in here today, and not everybody has English as their chamber, which sounds great with rock music, but not so good for talking. So when you There will be questions. I was told would be given a series of questions that we should address. I didn't get that, so that's okay. But if we use it as a, thank you. If we use this as a session in listening to people, that's very good training for yourself. And it also means that we take in a lot of what's said. Last couple of things to put in here is that it's quite important if you want to say something, comment, ask a question, please think carefully about it beforehand so it's short and very clear, because that really helps the person who you're asking a question of or commenting to get what you're saying. Okay? It may be that some of you will feel left out because I didn't steer the ship properly and so on. And so I start off by humbly apologizing for anybody that I will offend by cutting them off. And that afterwards they can come up to me and I will apologize even more. Right. We are not going to introduce, I'm not going to introduce everybody here. And I will ask people to come up in a random order, which is great because it means that there's no order of preference. But actually, I'm going to break my rules straight away by asking Cynthia to speak first because she is camping and it was cold last night and she may have to go and restore her body to its usual fitness. So Cynthia, I'm estimating that each person has between 3 and 5 minutes, and I'll try and keep to that, and I will probably interrupt you when its time is up. Okay?
Okay. All right, there we go. Good. Thank you so much, Jan. It's true. I'm not feeling my best, so I want to get back to my tent to lie down. So I'm really glad to be here and representing the Foundation for Intentional Community, also known as FIC. We are a US-based nonprofit organization going back 35 years, maybe even longer. So I'm going to share a little bit of our history and where we're at today with our programs and activities. So I am one of 5 co-directors. We have a shared leadership model. Up until 2019, we had an executive director, and then we decided once that person left that we wanted to try out a new format and really, walk the talk with experimenting with different forms of governance that we know the intentional communities in our network are really good at experimenting with. And I joined first as a board member in 2014, and then really came on to support FIC in a staff role when we did our rebranding. So some of you may remember us as the Fellowship for Intentional Community. And we had, that orange logo. And then I think around 2018, that's when we did this makeover and really upgraded our website. And those upgrades are continuing. We run ic.org. We used to be the publishers of Communities Magazine, but we are no longer. We handed off that publication to another organization, CohoUS, and now we just have the website where we're continually adding a lot of workshops and events and online courses, and most recently a podcast all about intentional community. So we view ourselves as a resource hub for people who want to join, start, or learn about intentional communities. And we view intentional communities and all these different forms of communal living really as pathways towards a more sustainable, just, and cooperative future. And really this cooperative future, this cooperative culture is what we're trying to foster. We're not saying that everyone needs to up and join a community. It's really about taking these lessons from these incredible experimentation centers and then applying them to wherever someone may be living. I'll share. So FIC, I'm still learning the history, and I know we have Ian Rains here with us who are also board members, and maybe they can shed more light on the history of FIC. But I'm learning that it began over 40 years ago as a mutual aid network amongst different intentional communities, mostly in the Northeast, maybe a dozen or so, and slowly expanded. And these communities were supporting each other. They were sharing resources and knowledge and information. And then at some point, this network grew to the point where they decided to incorporate as a nonprofit and then have a public facing mission. So FIC, we kind of had this dual role of supporting the communities on the ground, but also being this face to the world and really an open door to anyone who wants to learn about these places, including the media. And we handle a variety of inquiries throughout the year from people who are really curious to learn more about what's happening in these places. We have around 12 staff currently and a growing board. We have staff mostly in North America, but also now more global. And it's funny on my traveling, because when I'm in Europe, most people know GEN, Global Ecovillage Network, is like the big umbrella organization for this movement. And they don't know FIC. And then when I'm in the US, communities and people there don't really know GEN, but they know FIC. And we think of Ecovillage really and cohousing and all these different tiny house village housing cooperatives as all different forms of intentional community. So it's really this umbrella term that we use. And I'll wrap up by saying that we are looking for people who are very knowledgeable about this movement to come give presentations, to teach some of our online courses, to share information with us. And I think many of you in this room would be fantastic contributions to our programs and really getting some of your work and the things that you're curious about out there in the world. Okay, so that's all that I'll say. And do check out our website, ic.org. We have the online directory with over 1,000 communities. And looking forward to, seeing you engage, maybe also with our discussion forum, which is another new program that we launched recently. So I could go on, but I'll hand over to the next person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cynthia. I hope you feel better this afternoon. I don't have a clear order here, so I'm just going to go randomly around, and the same rules apply. And I think there are some questions here, but I want to open up for a discussion at the end of all this. So Paz, would you like to take the next step? Okay, we have a little technical thing here. That's great. Okay, while that's happening, are there any jokes anybody has in the audience that they want to share? Short ones only.
Okay, is this walk?
Good, that was a short.
This one is walk?
Great.
So. Okay, I just wanted to see. Okay.
Okay. Speak.
So, how do you tell the story of how a small group of people impacted an entire way of living and created unimaginable change? By a small group, I mean a subgroup within a worldwide nationalist movement in the 19th century, from where a very small group of Zionists emerged. Of these Zionists, a handful immigrated to Israel, with even fewer settling in a cooperative settlement. This tiny group was responsible for an original forms of settling in kibbutzim and moshavim unique to Israel alone. This group turned utopia into reality. Yad Tabenkin tells this story. Yad Tabenkin is an archive and research institute founded in 1971, so we are half a century old. This is a story of the Kibbutz and the Israel cooperative settlement. שכחתי רגע להביא את הזה. רגע, שנייה. Okay. This is a story of the Kibbutz and the Israel cooperative settlement on all its derivatives. This is probably a unique and one-time story throughout history. We tell the story of how the Kibbutz movement changed in the face of challenges of the time and grew even stronger. We think this story is still relevant, especially to young people or people looking to realize ideas of a more just society. So, how do we tell this story? No?
No, it's the same.
Okay. How do we tell this story? We have 3 stories of concrete in our building and 3 metaphorical stories. The first story is an archive, a 5-mile-long information flow, the 4th largest in the country. Hundreds of studies emerged here using various documents, movies, photos, artifacts, etc. The second floor is the research and library floor. This is the archive. Okay, this is the archive. All right, it's passed so fast. Okay. The second floor is research and library floor, the knowledge floor. Through research, we process the information into knowledge. The top floor is the knowledge dissemination floor, where we hold seminars and conferences, publish books, have tours, exhibitions, and more. Yad Tabenkin's research is the foundation for the entire field in Israel. It is impossible to research our topics without quoting Yad Tabenkin. Numbers talks. In 1921, 7,000 people visited a dedicated book website where we published our Hebrew books. They read 65,700 pages. This is a huge number for research of this kind. Our research, led by Dr. Menachem Topel and Dr. Alon Gan, and our books lead to additional activities. For example, our book, Cooperation in Israel, Past, Present, and Future, which we published in 1921, led to collaboration on cooperative studies with several prestigious organizations, 3 studies series, and 2 cooperative tour programs. The tours are very exciting because we meet with groups of young people who have sparkling eyes and passion in their hearts to create a more just society. Yad Tabenkin is a small organization with far outreach and contacts with many organizations in Israel and worldwide. Here's a picture of some of the organizations we collaborate, ranging from academia, research, and institute, collaborative organization, archives, heritage organizations, libraries, museums, and more. We recently opened Instagram and Facebook pages where we connect the archive treasure to daily life. Surprisingly, we always find a link and show how archives is not only this of the past, things of the past, but very relevant today. We find that our institute is especially critical because it brings value and ideas relative to people looking for an alternative to a neoliberal world. Here in this group, we feel we have partners along the globus and along the way, and it's a great feeling. Thank you. Feel free to log into and follow us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good, very succinct. We will move on. And Deborah, would you like to, you need the microphone? Is this the one? Yeah, actually there's one there, but doesn't matter.
Hello, I'm representing the CSA, the Communal Studies Association. It's the American counterpart to ICSA. It was formed in 1975 by Donald Pitzer, who is a history professor at the University of Southern Indiana. Its original name was the National Historic Communal Societies Association, and it was an academic association focusing on historic communities in the United States. But in, I think, the early 1990s, it changed its name to the Communal Studies Association and really broadened its focus to include not just academics, but also contemporary communitarians and historic preservationists. And so we warmly welcome participation by people living in intentional communities, as well as scholars who study contemporary and historic intentional communities. We put on an annual conference. Our conference is typically in late September or early October. This coming year, we're going to have our conference at Canterbury Shaker Village in New Hampshire, which is the northeastern part of the United States. We also put out a journal, and the journal, we put out 2 issues per year of the journal. And the one thing I want you to know about is the journal has a book review section in it. And our book review editor is in the audience. It's Cheryl Coulthard. We want to raise your hand so people know, because if you have a book, if you've written a book and you'd like to have it reviewed by the journal, she's someone you'd like to talk to. Or if you want to review a book, you can let her know that as well. It needs to be a current book. We also have a newsletter, a website. Our web address is communalstudies.org. We give out awards, like awards to starting scholars, distinguished scholars, projects, things like that. We give out research fellowships and grants. So please keep that in mind. I think that's all I have to say about the Communal Studies Association, but I'd welcome any questions later, either on at this time or afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, we will carry on. I see we have a comment from somebody on Zoom. Can you share that with us?
The name of the book review editor, it's Cheryl Coulthard, and she's here at the conference.
If somebody could write it in on chat, maybe, is that a possibility? You
Done.
can?
Dan's done it.
Dan done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Did I hear the internet connection's gone down? Okay, okay. It's early days yet. Okay, Shlomo, will you follow next? Thank you.
I'm Shlomo Getz, the head of the Institute for the Research of the Kibbutz at the University of Haifa. Because of the limited time, I try to read with my perfect Hebrew accent. So the Institute is an expression of scientific collaboration between the Kibbutz movement and the University of Haifa. We are mainly or only a research center. We don't deal with other activities, but research. Our current research topics are changes in the kibbutz structure, outcome of changes in the kibbutz leadership, regional development, and so on. We have a yearly survey of institutional changes in the kibbutz community and a yearly opinion survey of representative sample of kibbutz members. And we are doing that since 1990, more than 30 years, almost yearly. It's published only in Hebrew, but we have some papers in English that about those surveys. One of our main contribution, I can say, to the community of researchers is the comprehensive computerized bibliography of the kibbutz. It includes all scientific publications related to the kibbutz and contain more than 700 titles, half of them in Hebrew, half of them in other languages, mainly in English. It's very easy to reach them because it's at the University of Haifa Library, and just if you enter to the University of Haifa Library and ask for the kibbutz bibliography, you'll find all those 7,000 titles, of course, by subject. Our research is not only academic, we also propose services to kibbutzim and kibbutzim organization to do some applied survey for them. Beside that, we have also Tabenkin and Ari that is not presented here, that we are collaborating with them in many activities. And as I said, if I said before that we are concentrated in research, in academic research, this collaboration with our brother and sister from Tabenkin and Ari lead us to do also other things that are not purely research, but are still academic. Thank you.
Just want to say, I think that the internet connection is not going very well. It keeps coming and going. That shouldn't bother us, but we might send a talk to the people who are not connected. But all is not lost. I understand it's all being recorded, so one can go later on and check out this one here. If I could ask Silvia to
Sure.
take the next one, please.
My name is Silvia Rode, and I'm the director for the Center for Communal Studies, which is located at the University of Southern Indiana in Evansville, Indiana. And while you may not be familiar with the university, you probably have heard of Historic New Harmony. Historic New Harmony is part of the university, so the buildings and whatever are managed and so on. So the archives were established in 1976, 1 year after Don Pitzer started the Communal Studies Association. He also a year later established the archives at the university. So kudos to him, 2 of them today. And he also, for those of you who know Don, he sends his greetings. When he heard that I'm coming here, he said, make sure you connect with some of his friends. And the center is foremost a research center for historical communities, groups, intentional communities, and utopia. We house 508 communal collections and 15,000 digital images. So in order also to get researchers to Indiana, we offer a travel research grant every year, and a graduate grant, research grant, and an undergraduate research grant. That's enough money for each to come and stay for a while in New Harmony or Evansville for that matter. You can also see that at the website. On top of it, we sponsor 2 lectures annually. They are also now, we show them on Zoom, so you can participate and watch the lectures. We also, not long ago, we established a communal studies minor. Now, some of the courses are online. We are still debating whether that contradicts the notion of creating community if we do it digitally, but the COVID basically made us think in that direction. I think that's about all I wanted to say. Please consult our website. It's Center for Communal Studies at usi.edu. And I would welcome you very much to show you New Harmony and help you with the archives. Yeah, there's a treasure of materials in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to add or emphasize or repeat even that it's great to have you here because you are a representative. Don was one of the founders of the ICSA, and I think it's really good that we mentioned his name many times during the conference. He's one of the 2 life members of the ICSA, and the other one is Yaakov Oved. And actually, this whole thing, the reason why we're sitting here is that those 2 men sat on a rock on a Mediterranean beach and thought this up. So we can blame them for being here, which is great. Okay. Taisa, are you okay? You've got some slides coming?
Yeah, just a question. Can I have the slides open here? Can I just present and it goes there? Okay, perfect. So I can go next.
Great.
See?
Yeah, it looks like we got it.
Let me just put here. Full screen. Why? Let's try this way. Yeah. Now close my view here because otherwise it's just too much.
It's not on the screen.
That's okay. Okay. So it's a pleasure to present the Global Ecovillage Network. Oh, why? Did something strange going on?
Otherwise, I would say it's the connection.
Maybe make do with that.
Now,
Make do with what you have.
okay, something. Let's see if it works. Yes, okay. So the Global Ecovillage Network was founded in 1995 during a gathering at Finhorn Ecovillage. We are a network of many networks, but and I'm currently part of Gen International staff as the Education and Research Coordinator. What are ecovillages? Ecovillages are communities using participatory design processes to integrate 4 main dimensions: ecology, economy, social, and culture, into a whole systems pathway towards a regenerative future. This is the map of regeneration or Ecovillage design cards. It's a tool we use to map and evaluate sustainability and in this. But let's see. Sorry. So the network nowadays is divided per region. So we have a network in North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, and Genoa is for Oceania and Asia together. And we have also national networks. For example, here in Denmark, it is a strong Ecovillage network. In Germany also, we have the Brazilian network present here. So we are this network of networks. Currently in our database, we have more than 6,000 ecovillages registered in 114 countries. And we started with communities, and most of them were rural communities, but nowadays Gen includes traditional communities, intentional communities, urban and rural communities, so it's getting more broad. So we are now working with citizen projects, communities, neighborhoods, and so on. That's just to give an idea. And one of the questions was what is the GEN's purpose? And it is to link and support ecovillages, educate the world about them, and grow the regenerative movement to inspire, scale, and facilitate communities and people from all walks of life to become active participants in the transition to a resilient and regenerative human presence on Earth. And some questions that ICSA scholars could support us. We have a research circle in GEN International. There's more and more people willing to join us. There is an idea of creating a research institute and an international database to really put together all the Ecovillage related articles, papers, and so on. And the idea is how can we really gather and spread these community lifestyles? What is the impact? How can we support communities to bring this voice to different audiences? How can we connect to universities, to other stakeholders in order really to scale? Because ecovillages are living laboratories, but we need them as these demonstration sites. We know ecovillage living is not for everyone. How can we learn from them and use all the technologies to serve a wider world? That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before our next speaker, I would like, especially with laptops, to stand up. This is not laptop friendly, but I think everyone should stand up for a minute and stretch and breathe in. That's quite a good idea. And you can breathe out as well. So you try and do it in order. And just stretch yourselves and just move your body around a little bit, because actually we're not really built to just sit for hours on end, especially after lunch. So get you really moving. Yeah, this brings strength back into the community here. Okay, good. Now you guys with laptops can pick them up off the floor and get them going again. That's good. So Aharon,
Yeah.
are you ready for the next input? And
Yeah.
you have between 3 and 5 minutes. Okay, but it's okay. I'll cut you off when time's up.
Okay. So I'll say very briefly about Hakhel. I talked about it in the morning, so I won't be too much. And actually, I would like to say a few words about maybe ICSA, and we can take all this together. It's not loading anyway. So,
You have to speak into the machine.
sorry.
Otherwise, people.
Better
won't
now?
hear you. That's
Okay.
much better.
So,
Start again.
is this okay? Okay. So I'm here with Hakhel. I talked about it a bit in the morning, and I would like to show maybe 2 slides, but it's not loading anyway. So maybe I'll just speak without them and then say a few words about us, ICSA, some ideas that even I and Anton just discussed, because the questions I got in preparation for this session are what kinds of research should scholars in this field engage with, and where is this all going to? And that's what I prepared for. So basically, Hakhel is an incubator for Jewish international communities. Just to explain where I'm coming from. Let's see. We'll just do it without it. It's an incubator for Jewish international communities. The purpose is to strengthen Jewish life wherever they are outside Israel and the connection to Israel. And the way we do it is by building communities, because we believe communities are the second most important component in human identity after the family. Now, the problem, I mean, that's the opportunity. That's how we can. That's what we're doing. But the challenge is that on average, and people in this crowd can correct me from the numbers you know, out of every 10 communities that will launch, that will start, that will get going, on average, only 2 will become sustainable on the long term. They will survive the 3rd year, the 5th year, they become long term, they will have a life of their own. Most of them will fall apart in different parts of the process for many different reasons, which we don't have the time to go into. And what we're trying to do is, so we have here a nice graphic showing this. So only 20% will actually survive. Now, what we're trying to do is by intervening in this gap that you see here. No, forget the presentation. What we're trying to do is to intervene in this gap, in this time frame, as they grow over time, and through professional knowledge, professional tools, networking with other communities, increase their chances of success. And what we have seen over the years is that we've been able to enlarge this funnel from 20% to 70%. And this number comes from, we had about 200 applicants over the last, no, we had more applicants. We had 200 communities that were accepted into the program over the last 7 years, out of which 140 communities in 30 countries still exist and operate. So that's what we take the number of 7 out of 10 as what we believe as a result of our intervention. And going to the question that I prepared for, and not just telling about my organization, what I think that we would need from this fabulous network, from ICSA, from all of the partners here, what we would need, what we could potentially also contribute to, is I would say 3 major things. One is more professional tools and applied knowledge, like actual tools, the actual best practices on how to build communities in the best way, how to improve them, how to make them more resilient, how to improve their chances of success and taking them to the next level. That's one thing. The other thing is documenting what's going on, documenting in real time. So all the archives that we have are built on people who documented what they did in real time. So it's our turn in history to document, to create the materials for the next archives. That's number 2. Number 3, I think that expanding our network beyond, that's why we're here. That's why we were here also in the, it's okay. You're actually giving me 6 minutes. So I'm, that's part of the reason we're here. That's part of the reason we came to the previous conference, is really to expand our network beyond just Jewish people in Israel and expand, hopefully have other networks expand and collaborate with us. Because I think, just to put all of this in context and to conclude, the communities we build, so yes, we have our own Jewish interest, and I'm sure that any nation and any group has their own reason why they do communities. But on a larger scale, on a larger, from a broader perspective, Building communities is one of the, let's say, medications or remedies for many of today's problems. If it's environmental, if it's loneliness, which is a huge crisis. Oh, sorry. 30 seconds. You see, I'm constraining myself even more than you constrain myself, me. But really, like, yeah. Two last sentences. And I think that what we do as an organization, what everybody here is doing, what this conference is doing, really should be much more out there. Like, next conference should have, I don't know, like, should have like 500 people. It should be much. We should find ways to expand this network, expand into more partners, engage more communities, and make this tool of community building really something that stands, that takes its place in human society as it is right now. And I think we have a role to play in this, and something that we're happy to collaborate with other people.
Thank you. I have a question for you, because I haven't been taking notes. Did you mention Kabbalat Shabbat?
Yeah, we talked about it in the beginning. 7:30, we'll meet here,
Excellent.
Kabbalat Shabbat.
Right. Good. Our next speaker is not here, but she is with us, both in spirit and on Zoom. So I would invite Libby, if you guys can sort out the technology here, to get Libby into the room with us. And Libby,
Hi.
3 to 5 minutes.
Can I just make sure y'all can hear me? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Audio is good. Okay, great. So yeah, thank y'all for having me. My name's Libby Sanders, and I am here representing the Camphill Research Network, which is part of, currently under the umbrella of Camphill Academy, which is our accredited training program in inclusive social development that the Camphill movement in North America really operates. And so the Camphill Research Network was developed originally as a sort of repository, an online website where research primarily in English about the Camphill movement could be gathered, collected, and hopefully disseminated. Because the issue that we often find ourselves still today facing is that Camphill as a movement falls in between the cracks. There's a sort of famous or infamous, depending on your perspective, framing of the Camphill movement as having, 3 primary identities: an intentional community movement, an anthroposophical initiative, and a disability service provider. And so because all of these identities are mixing around with each other, Camphill often falls to the margins of those fields' primary focus, especially when it comes to research. And so that was really the impetus for the Camphill Research Network's origins. So when the Camphill Academy inherited that network, we wanted to really fuse it with some other research activities we had started, including the Camphill Research Symposium, which we were very happy to co-host with the ICSA in 2019 in the Camphill communities in upstate New York. And so, our website is out there. I'll put it in the chat, and I really would encourage folks to visit. I think what we really want to get out there is simply the knowledge that we exist and that we want to learn, because there is quite a lot that I think in terms of research, we have a ways to go. And we have a ways to go in turning that into a body of knowledge that is cohesive and applicable, that can really be in service to not only our communities, but beyond. And then to see, what sort of questions it would be nice or appreciated for, communal studies scholars to turn to. I mean, I really want to echo, Aharon, what you said. This applied knowledge within communities, and especially this notion of support for documentation. One of the issues we run up against all the time is that there is so much research as an activity of learning, of transformation and discovery that is constantly happening within our communities. And it's not just in Camphill, intentional communities in general, but the people who are best placed to then gather that material, share it, and disseminate it as research are kind of busy doing the work. And so support in how we can make that sort of documentation streamlined, easier, and really sustainable, I think is essential. And getting the insights of communal studies scholars to do that would also be, a huge benefit. I think from Camphill's perspective uniquely, because we're, explicitly and originally inclusive of people with and without intellectual disabilities, I really would love to hear how communal studies scholars, are exploring questions of inclusion and justice and how those are navigated both within intentional communities, but also in between intentional communities and what in the world of disability is often referred to as the community, that is the wider community in which these communities find themselves. And how can those boundaries maybe become a bit more porous, such that this interdependence is not just a value of something we have between members in the community, but actually between intentional communities and the wider community. A number of people have spoken to that exchange of knowledge to support not only communities, but the world. And so I think, how can communal studies scholars really support that understanding and that activity would be essential. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It just shows us the challenge of communicating with people who are not physically present. But we had a great, thank you very much, and that was really good. Let's go on to the next. Betsy, are you also going to speak on behalf of RAINS?
I can speak about CoHousing US.
I think so. I don't see him here. So
If he's not calling
I'll
in.
give you a little bit of extra time to cover that as well. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay.
Timer. Thank you. My name is Betsy Morris. I live in Berkeley CoHousing, and I am here to speak about the CoHousing Research Network. And I will also briefly talk about cohousing.org or CohoUS, the entity that we have an affiliation with. Dan, would you bring up cohousingresearchnetwork.org? And when he's able to share it, just to show, I don't have pictures of beautiful communities or beautiful people. It's a website. It's for those of us who are interested in knowledge production and knowledge sharing. My own background in academic professional training is in city and regional planning. So the co-housing movement reached the US through two young architects who wrote a book and coined the term co-housing and began to draw fans. And some of the first knowledge about co-housing, we weren't starting with a theory or a concept or a utopia. We were learning right away from the model in Denmark as it could be envisioned in the US. We were very fortunate in that. So the first research efforts really were the people who wanted to move into co-housing. My neighbor, Don, for one, may he rest in peace, went back to school in city planning and wrote a master's thesis about co-housing feasibility. And by the time I entered the co-housing world, I was a professional consultant, often working with databases. And my own perspective at that moment is we had an abundance of knowledge from one-off case studies by fans of the concept. So hardly critical analysis, but for an archivist, a historian, maybe these case studies will be very useful someday. But when, we're halfway done. So CoHousing Research Network came about as a result of two impulses, two sources. One was on a practical level, people like me who wanted a regular census of co-housing. We had small numbers in the US. We could count each one and find out who's living there, and certain practical knowledge that CohoUS, the board, would be helpful to seekers and to developers. So not a independent research base. Then our wonderful interest from master's students got to graduate up to doctoral students and then young professors. And they eventually wanted a more independent research base and knowledge base. And so Co-Housing Research Network started with mostly East Coast academic doctoral student faculty people who brought us all together to report on what was our current knowledge of co-housing as a one-day conference, That morphed, that was in 2011. And that morphed into what became the first national survey, random sample survey issued collectively, and became a base for every 5 years, a study, a survey of many questions from a base of people living in co-housing who are willing to actually distribute the survey to other people. Because I only have the 1 minute. So what we were trying to do is to make data shareable, to enable comparative long-term research, and to provide, and to do this in a cooperative way. So we have a collective database that if you are a researcher who would like to survey co-housing households or communities, you can come to the Co-Housing Research Network, present your thoughts, get feedback from experienced people, maybe even use our existing database to supplement what you're trying to do. Each year, the next one is this year, actually. The survey has both some standard questions, and then different researchers have particular questions that they're adding in. We're still, and that database can be available by coming and talking to us, and perhaps really saying you'll share your data back. The other product of the Co-Housing Research Network is, and about half of the network, I would say the majority of the network at this point, there's maybe 300 people on an email list, don't live in co-housing, but a solid core do. And we are an acknowledged partner from cohousing.org, CohoUS. So what I wanted to share on, before I forget, the other resource we have is a bibliography of peer-reviewed sources. So everything I've done, which tends to be applied and not considered, disciplined, is not in that list, to my, what do you call that, somewhat indignation. But I respect the desire to have these peer-reviewed articles, and they cover sociology, political science. They're covering different European researchers, and there's 3 in particular that I just wanted to showcase. I think there's over 100 items in there. It's not exhaustive, but it's the articles that I think have been most valuable to the researchers within the network. And 3 I just want to point out. One is a national study by Robert Boyer out of North Carolina. He put questions into a national social science survey of the American people, and asking questions about who wants co-housing, and finding out the propensity of some notion of cooperative decision-making and living within a mutual aid neighborhood. So I thought I'd recommend that. Heidi Bergson, one of the co-founders of the network, has written on Is Co-Housing Good for Democracy? She's a political scientist. She was asking questions about civic participation, comparing co-housing community members and members of similar demographic condominium type projects. And then I will also just call out Angela Sanguinetti, who's really a founder, who created the first And her work is in ecology and social perspectives on ecology. But there's been a lot of articles. If you'd like to know more, the next co-housing conference, this is when the Co-housing Research Network, typically there's been a conference every 2 years or every year, and a portion of the conference is the research network, people getting together, sharing what they do. You're welcome to participate. It's in August in Madison, Wisconsin. So let me just reflect for a moment. The database, the network meetings to have conversations with other researchers, the sharing the bibliography. And I do want to add that CohoUS, Cohousing US, which is a totally separate board, the research network is self-governing.
Betsy, you have to sum it up now. Okay.
I want to tell you, I've been told to tell you, the new executive director is very interested in collaboration. We are completely self-supporting through our own contributions and volunteer labor. We have no academic support or foundation support. And
Okay, thank you very much, Betsy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy, thank you very much. Beatriz, can you take over? Can you take over? So it's between 3 and 5 minutes, okay? Right, let's get the slides up.
Você pode compartilhar sua tela.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. I am Beatriz Arruda. I'm from Brazil, and I'm representing the research circle of the Brazilian Sustainable Settlements Council, which is part of CASA Latina, which is part of GEN, the Global Ecovillage Network. It was founded in 2012, and then there was an organizational restructuring. It's a sociocratic organization. And there was a new website launched during the pandemics, and also during this social distancing period, there were events online to make some environment for eco-villages and people interested in the concept to meet. And in one of these events came up the idea among some scholars and students that were there to make a research group. So our vision, I will allow myself to read it, so I'll make myself clear, and I hope you come along with me. We had this vision that the theoretical conceptual foundation of what the term eco-village is and what it represents comes from different sources and from different cultures and locations around the world, as well as within Brazil. Research activity is fundamental to expand and deepen the worldview, to remain well-informed and instrumented to help people, groups, and initiatives that want to make a transition to more sustainable, solidary, and just ways of life. So about us, we are currently 12 researchers engaged in the identification, characterization, analysis, and reflection on eco-villages, especially Brazilian ones. None of us are in the same institutional. Most of us are still on the process of becoming scholars as master or PhD students, but we have a purpose. Fundamentally, we want to become a virtual hub for exchanges and partnerships between those dedicated to the scientific study of eco-villages in all areas of knowledge, because we acknowledge that the complexity needs interdisciplinary visions, and we are there to help each other. There isn't yet an established institute for eco-village research or even co-housing or co-living initiatives in Brazil. No university has yet stepped forward to embrace this. So we felt really lonely in our laboratories, like all the time explaining what eco-village is, not having a consensus on the term, and never moving forward.
So when we got together, it was very stimulating. And what brings us together and moves us forward is that we hope to contribute to documenting the evolution of the Ecovillage movement, systematizing the accumulated experiences and the historical knowledge, and also following up on new developments as they emerge, such as some things that are very similar to what Camila, for example, showed us in her presentation 2 days ago. In addition to producing quality science and disseminating the subject in the Brazilian and international academic environment, it's also our task to decode scientific knowledge in order to disseminate suitable and appropriate information that serves the Ecovillage movement and for society as a whole. On this basis, it is also up to us to foster a critical debate on the phenomenon of ecovillages as a communal and a societal movement, reflecting on its role within the Brazilian context. So here in the map, you can see where we are. And we got together and decided to create this group on July 2020. So it's our second birthday. And we've been conducting these advanced seminars on sustainable settlements research since April of 2021. And next month, we will have the 8th edition. And it's a place that we meet and we exchange our ongoing projects, our research questions and interests in a friendly way. And we have some, and because of this, we've had some international collaborations with Gen Australia and Cohousing Australia, and also with CASA Latina. So what about you? Let's keep in touch. Please write to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beatriz. Nara, if you can wind this section up, that would be very good.
Awesome. So my name is Nara. I'm from Slovenia. I'm primarily a writer. This is my book in English. I'd be glad if you check it out. The title is Human Instructions for Use. I like to make myself a guinea pig of various things. Just to clarify something, some of you may have noticed I'm barefoot. It's not just here. I've been barefoot for 15 years. And there's some reasons behind it, which I won't go into. It's just a bit of provoking society. I mean, it's healthy and it's good, but just so people, yeah. So I've been working for many organizations. I wear many hats. And in the recent 7 years, I've been connected to Ecovillage network, which is a European network of community-led initiatives on climate change and sustainability. In Ecovillage, 2013-14, there were 3 movements that started noticing a need to connect their voices. Those were Ecovillage, permaculture, and transition networks in Europe. So through their joint efforts, they came together and formed this network where they became founding members. There were around 40 organizations across Europe to found this organization. And the basic intention was, look, we represent some overlapping values, but these overlaps are really big. And if we want to speak to political institutions, to media, to wider audiences, we can speak together and make our voices stronger. We can apply for funding, various levels of funding together, and then have projects together and increase our voice. So through years of collaboration, we came up with, maybe you can show a slide, the website I shared before, the technicians in the back, just to show the website. So it took a while, and then we came up with this name, Communities for Future, starting with a bit of Fridays for Future, to bring in a little bit of activism as well. You know, we're not only here to share and spread knowledge, we are also here to inspire communities to do more work. And I hope it will appear. Yeah, this is Communities for Future's platform. It's a very elaborate, very big platform that provides not only knowledge sharing facilities, but also various events, various information, and so on. And a big part of it is Communities for Future Wiki. Like when you look online, what is the base, like the most common encyclopedia used nowadays? Who knows? Wikipedia. Oh, yeah, Wikipedia. And what is the basic characteristic of Wikipedia? Collaborative. It's knowledge commons, knowledge commons. So what we're doing is we're creating knowledge together. So we're adopting the same principles. So what we did, we went and mapped what exists out there. So we have transition network knowledge databases. We have co-housing knowledge databases. We're urging people to add it so we have a common database. And thus far, like we have a lot of pages, but a lot of them are not filled in. So you can see some of the examples of our articles, and you can see also the menus on the sides, which kind of try to summarize the different topics we want to focus on. What's interesting about our database and also our Zotero library, do you know Zotero? It's one of the softwares you can use to keep your, so we are organized it well. We have like 1,700 items in there, and it's not only coming from communities, but also coming from institutions. So like when we do projects, we can use it as a really good resource for references and like creating literature reviews and so on. This database could be available to all of us. So we are like creating these platforms to serve us all, and we hope you can use them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would invite you again, all of you, to stand up. You can stretch if you want, but just stand, just the fact of standing up and maybe a little stretch will put air back into your lungs. It's very challenging, an afternoon session. This is a good opportunity to get your bodies back in shape again. Now, actually, you know what? If you want to stand up for a few minutes, that's also okay. I'm going to actually stand. It's great standing, you know, and I can talk and stand. I'm really good at multitasking. We have 15 minutes left, and I think it would be quite a good idea for us now to use these 15 minutes to think about the ecology of the organizations that we're talking about. And ecology is about linking together in a networking kind of way. And we might want to pose a couple of questions, and these can be questions or comments. One question that arises in my mind, how can we work together more than we do? And I think we are working a lot together. So this is not like we're not doing it, but can we be better at it? Can we be more active? The other thing is, do you have any questions to some of the speakers that may be just really practical questions? It's great. You see, I'm the only one standing. I'm left standing. That's great. So we open up. I'm going to be quite strict because at past, which is in 15 minutes from now, we are actually going to all stand up and walk out of here. So we have 15 minutes and the floor is open. And Dan, you and I should have a hand signal type communication in case there are some of people who are not here who would like to participate in this. So please. There should be a microphone. Can somebody be a microphone volunteer? You could do that? Great.
Oh, shucks.
They're fighting for them now.
I'm Niels Johan from Denmark. I'm co-chair of our social entrepreneurship in Denmark. Thank you very much for all your contributions, and thank you for all the work you're doing. We have heard many fantastic presentations, and I think what is in common here is the interest for people and the planet. People and the planet. So the interest for doing more research on a culture, supporting people and planet could be something that you all have in common. and how we can connect a growth within the limits for the planet. Because in these months, I think we have a new break for, well, maybe we should back to the Second World War to find a similar situation as the situation we are in just now. So I could maybe ask you as researchers how we can go forward now with this basic interest for people and for the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Would one of the researchers on the panel like to address that issue? Betsy, go for it.
I got an inspiration, as many of us do, during the presentation, the panel on COVID, which is that for the first time in one room, I was hearing multiple networks of types of communities on different continents. We were missing a couple, presenting something that is about an urgent crisis, not the COVID crisis. So that I thought perhaps a joint assembly of these findings from different networks and continents could be of interest while the world is still concerned about COVID. And obviously there's many other world crises that eventually we could we could assemble knowledge on, but I thought that was an opportunity and would look forward to hearing how that could be potentially supported if others like that idea. So that's one, to actually, here's a worldwide perspective on a variety of communities from a variety of researchers talking about the ways in which this unified, this more integrated way of life, we hope that has helped, had a particular flavor and help for people based on the words of people who live in those communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else has anything to say? Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't able to attend most of this panel because I had an overlapping commitment.
We can't hear. Switch on, hold it right close to your mouth.
Yes, sorry, I wasn't able to attend most of this panel because I had an overlapping commitment back home at university. I had to be online. But I would like to know if you have addressed the energy crisis that is being caused, that is being, made even worse by the Russia-Ukraine war and the perspective that that Germany, the key economic engine of the European Union, might undergo severe scarcity this winter, and how existing communities might actually be a kind of support system or contribute to a support system in the face of such crisis, and what this might mean for the future of the intentional community movement, or or communities in general. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there somebody on the?
I just like to say,
maybe
as someone who's barefooting, we need simplification, and studying this and like propagating it and making a case for it, because energy crisis cannot be solved without just like a short answer from also the research that we have in our database.
Perhaps someone from Gen Europe could speak to the shared study about energy use and carbon footprint examples.
Yeah, I know our databases very well, and I see so many examples. I've just been doing some like literature reviews recently. Yes, it's insane how good some communities are doing, and the simplification factor doesn't mean it's lesser quality of life. It's actually higher quality of life because we're working on the basics and improving them. So I don't want to be the only one to speak, but yeah, you're right. There is a lot there that we can show from community side for energy crisis. And we cannot, I think, resolve it on the level of political, whatever conundrum is going on there, but we can showcase how it can be done on the community level. And I don't know how we can pick it up and solve it, but I think communities have a lot of answers.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I mean,
Yeah, if I may.
yeah, of course, of course.
Thank you. I would like to, is it the fact? Okay. I would like to add a crisis on that one, the waste crisis. So there is two sides of it, and where the citizens take part on something that's a conjuncture. So at the same time that we have this design issue that industries should take a look and review their producing processes so we can disassemble things, stop generating waste that can not be reinserted in a circular economy way. Citizens also on the side of the communities have a lot to do with it, because it's not about only the disposal, but about the consumption, and also organizing them ourselves to push forward for these big changes that are out of our hands daily, but have a lot to do with our lifestyles, our habits, our choices, if we are able to make choices. And so I think that has totally to do with what you're saying, that there are many examples in very creative ways, in a very permacultural way of diversifying. There is no one solution for what, it's the groupment of many solutions that will help us overcome these challenges, at least in my point of view, and inspired by what I've been studying and learning so much from these wonderful initiatives. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just am trying to be aware also of the people who are not here. Dan, you haven't got anything, nothing coming in from outside this room.
We have one, but the communication was sent directly to us, and we are just trying to share it, otherwise I can read it.
Okay, great.
So there is this person that is asking, it's a statement question, and it starts as, I study Ecovillage, intentional communities, and have attended a few ICSA CSA events, and rarely come across other researchers like myself from Canada. I'd love to connect with other researchers who share my interest, but cannot find them. Maybe start a Canadian network. Any suggestions from the group on how to connect?
Personally, I found it quite hard to understand that.
Researchers in Canada, that correct?
Yeah, it just says, are there groups in Canada that are doing research? Canada, like North of America.
Right.
The presenter earlier today.
Yeah, there was a presenter in the morning session.
Laurie, yeah, she's not here right now. So I can't see how we can address that particular issue. And seeing as we only have a few minutes left, thank you for bringing that up. And if one of us can, or more of us can connect with Laurie to say there is something brewing there as a result of this session, which is great. We've actually got somebody there thinking and asking questions, which is what this is about. I think personally, I would like to kind of summarize and wind this up and release you all for your break. I have some thoughts about this, and one of the thoughts was that the side of my head, which is into organizations, was sitting here fantasizing a little bit about maybe a federation of all of us, because there are so many movements. And then the other side of me, which is a permaculture teacher, is actually, hey, guys, let's get the spade out and do something. I think we have to balance these two sides of us, the organization side and the practical doing side. And one way that we can balance that is to be friends and create networks and find excuses to meet each other. And I find that that is one of the most powerful things, actually, because people come and they say, hey, you know what, I really want to find out about permaculture in Finland. And they've come to the right person because they actually know somebody in Finland who is networking the permaculture network there. And so if we could just build up and think of the people that we can network with on a friendly basis, that may be as powerful as building another federation with maybe the United Federation of collectives, communities, eco-villages, and permaculturalists. And maybe we get a place in Geneva to put the head office. It may not be the direction we want to go in. So I just want to end up with a little quote that somebody said to me a few weeks ago, which has been in my head, and it's quite powerful. They said, change comes from the periphery. And if we try and become a monolithic organization, we will lose our contact with the periphery. So my personal takeaway from this last 1.5 hours is if we can keep doing grassroots work while being friendly with each other, I think that for me is my way of continuing this work. So I think then it's up to me to thank you all. I want to thank the panel. It's great. You know, I used to be a teacher and I had some bad experiences there, and this was great. It was so easy and lovely. I want to thank the technical people because you really connected us with the rest of the world. And I want to thank the rest of the world who are somewhere out there. And if you're still connected with us, thank you very much for being with us. And it's time for a cup of coffee. Thank you.